Alright guys, welcome back to Valorant News. The chaos continues in the Valorant world last night. TenZ hitting the timeline to break down all of the problems as he sees it with the state of the Valorant scene right now, and knowing the history of Riot responding to when TenZ has complaints, this could be an important watershed moment in the scene. But the other major talking point of yesterday was the fluorescent allegations. Another document hits the timeline last night. Very damning indeed if all of this stuff is true, but Fluorescent denies the allegations publicly. Where do we go from here? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. We're going to begin here. EMEA Stage 1. Heretics, they took down Team Liquid. They confirmed their spot at the World Cup as well. We'll get to that in a second. And this was honestly a really impressive 3-0. Look, as I said before, I was really impressed by Fnatic beating Heretics because I thought Heretics were honestly the team to beat at the moment. And they kind of showed it this series. 13-3, 13-10, 13-2. Just demolished Team Liquid. Team Liquid will still be there in Toronto, but Nats went 1-15. So you're not going to see maps like that very often. Not too much to say on that series really, other than just Heretics absolutely slammed it. And it is again in the finals in 5 hours time. Fnatic Heretics to determine who is the best team in Europe right now. Now, the European playoffs, so the teams that haven't qualified for the World Cup, they are battling it out right now. Now, Team Liquid actually dropped down here, as did BBL, to phase 2 of everything to see who qualifies from there. But yes, this is the way that the bracket currently looks for the World Cup. And these are the games that have happened over the last couple of days or so. For Esports took down Apex. They then beat Vitality as well. So again, Vitality continuing to have a difficult time. KC finally putting a bit of a run together. They managed to 2-0 Na'Vi here and get all the way through to the upper final against For Esports. Apex were eliminated. KOI are eliminated. These are the teams that are still alive. In the Americas, it currently looks like this. So yeah, 100T took down NRG 2-0 or 2-1. Again, it's proven incredibly challenging to actually watch or see any of this gameplay at all. But we do at least have the numbers. So we've got that, but frankly, nothing else, unfortunately. So anyway, NRG, the new NRG team with Scuba in the roster and Brock, they won the map 1 Haven 13-7. They then lost the Ascent, 100T won that. And then the Fracture was 13-9. Cryo on the Chamber, love to see it, getting the win in the end. Now, there was a bit of, reaction to a couple of these things. Firstly, I guess from just EWC in general discussing how the decision to not allow co-streaming and live broadcasting this weekend, this is in Europe, was ultimately a decision from EWC in line with Riot's existing policy. So there's a policy that says, okay, if there's other action happening in the Valorant world, you can't stream any of this stuff. EWC could have potentially chosen different dates to make that happen instead, but it just didn't make much sense. I still think the ruling from Riot is pretty ridiculous, to be honest, but that's their rules, and the EWC guys agreed to it. They knew this was happening, but unfortunately we can't watch any of this stuff. However, that will change going forwards in EMEA. Co-stream will be allowed from this Saturday onwards. So, but today's already Sunday. So anyway, that's happening there. Not exactly sure what's happening in the Americas as well, but as you guys can see here, we have 100T taking an NRG. There was some reaction as Asuna says 2-0'd Furia, 2-1'd NRG, clutched up a lot of rounds. Ethan says they literally handed them the win on Fracture with so many throws, and even Boostio replies and says GG's NRG 2-1. They threw some of the craziest rounds. I was dying laughing the whole series. So I do find it all rather funny when these teams are playing matches and we can't see them, right? So who knows what actually happens. But anyway, as far as they're concerned, NRG were throwing rounds heavy on the Fracture. Cloud9 have made the run. They took down Crew Esports 2-1. So, again, it's not really a playoffs, so they're pretty happy dominating, right? It's Cloud9 things. Oxy has an unreal series here, though. Not really the game one, but after that, the split was 33-10, and the Lotus, he went 26-11. So that's one of the better two-map performances that you're really ever going to see from a player. And it's 100T versus Cloud9 in the upper final to see who qualifies through to the World Cup. MIBR and Evil Geniuses, of course, are down here. That will continue in a few days' time, and these are the teams that remain. 2G play NRG, and that's, it's a difficult run, obviously, because Leviathan are already down to the losers bracket, having lost to NRG in the first round. Fury are eliminated. 2G get the bye because Loud never played. So, that's pretty much where we are at the present day. Before we get to the floor stuff, this is another big, actually a really important bit of drama. So XLG, they just won the playoffs in China, right? Like, they are right now the best Chinese team by the seeding going into Masters Toronto. Edward didn't make it. XLG won the finals against Billy Gaming. Wolves were the other team to qualify. But one of their players, you, now not you watching this video or me, but so you, this guy, has been suspended due to an ongoing investigation. Reportedly, this comes to allegations of misogynistic remarks, more, cheating, match fixing in the past, like more of that stuff, as we talked about over the last few days, other controversial comments. An internal investigation was launched overnight, and the player has been required to fully cooperate with the verification process after urgent internal discussions starting from the 18th of May 2025, which is today. You will be suspended from all competition and relieved of all duties and pay pending investigation. So yeah, what's going on here? How has this happened? There was talk that in 2022 he was involved, he was banned for match fixing a couple of years ago. And look, there's maybe more to it than meets the eye as well. Pretty crazy stuff, but as I say, right, like this isn't that long ago where in the grand finals of the playoffs, G-Lai Gaming won the playoffs with you in the roster, as you guys could see. And, well, as we look at their roster now, you is now gone to the inactive bench, and okay, maybe Martin, their sub, is going to step in, and that's the team they're going to turn up with to Toronto. But, still as the number one seed from the region, not what they would have wanted to happen. So this is TenZ's thing. As I say, we'll go through this before the fluorescent stuff. TenZ puts out a big statement last night, and I'm just going to go through it really because when TenZ said something, right, usually listen. The current state of NA Valorant below the Tier 1 level is in an absolutely terrible place. Tier 2 was fundamentally killed when Riot introduced the franchise system without providing the hands-on support for the Challengers League or offering proper financial aid to the organizations willing to invest in it and help grow and support the future of the players and the teams. Honestly, not surprising that match fixing for money eventually happened. These players are putting in all their time and energy to become the best, chasing their due and making it big. When hope is lost, some people may resort to accepting money to throw games. To be honest, that kind of money could be life-changing for them. Not to condone it, TenZ isn't condoning it, but he's saying that it's understandable why it led to this point because it starts from the top. I think the writers fail to consider that Tier 2 is a crucial pillar of support for Tier 1 play. It's exciting to see new underdog teams and rising talent perform on the big stage. Often makes for some of the most competitive and thrilling esports moments of all time. When that pillar crumbles, there's a real risk the entire structure could collapse. It's depressing and disappointing to see Riot mishandle a game that I truly love and care about. I hope they come to realize that they need to support the entire competitive ecosystem, not just the very top, and streaming the game and trying to create content has been a nightmare. Every streamer's constantly getting stream sniped, forces people to delay the stream, kill the chat interaction, matches are getting thrown in ranked for money to help others climb, reach high spots on the leaderboards. The incentive to play ranked has remained the exact same since the game launched. A lot of ranked players aren't excited to play, they're just addicted to it, queuing up and chasing the feeling that the game used to give them long ago. There have been no exciting new rewards for reaching the top, no new game modes, no expressive content to be created. I'm pretty heated as I write this. I just want what's best for the game, both at the top and everything beneath it. We as the players need to see action, not just words. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So, here we go. There's a big statement there from TenZ, and I'm sure that many of you guys agree with a large part of what he's saying on the timeline. But as I say, when TenZ says something, usually Riot Games will listen. Now, let's talk about the floor stuff, because yesterday we talked about this, and this, of course, was the original article that came out, on the severe sexual assault allegations, to say the very least, against Fluorescent, and the details that we saw. Now, of course, we went through this yesterday. I'll share it again. Brick, of course, an anonymous name in this case. And this was the original documentation. Now, of course, we saw the screenshots here, but, many people were seeing this and saying, well, it's interesting to see because the individual, the victim in this case herself has not posted this stuff publicly. It's coming through Kitty, who's friends, who's obviously put this stuff out there. And there were questions about whether, of course, the screenshots that we saw didn't have names attached and things like that. So people were wondering, okay, again, it's one of these incredibly challenging situations where one person says one thing, another person may say something different, and unless there's like video or audio proof and these kind of things that we have seen at times in the past, it's very difficult to differentiate what may or may not be going on here. So anyway, the day continues and Flor comes out with a statement and says, "I'm aware of the allegations that were made against me and take them very seriously. However, I strongly deny any and all accusations of sexual assault. I'm currently treating this matter with my full attention. I'm also exploring immediate legal assistance to help determine the best way for me to proceed, both in determining what I can share publicly and how to best go about clearing my name. I'll provide an update when I'm capable of doing so. I wish I could provide evidence for the public to see immediately, which implies that such evidence to the favour of Flor exists, but I have been asked to refrain from sharing at this time for my own safety. I ask to please respect the other party's privacy at this time." So, look, it's a statement. It's certainly one of the better statements that you're going to see in the circumstance from really anyone, mentioning how Flor, of course, will be looking to bring on legal counsel as well. But again, people were looking at this statement and saying, okay, because look, back in the day, I would look at this statement and say, okay, Flor's talking to a lawyer, the lawyer's put this together. Of course, nowadays, ChatGPT can be the lawyer, right? So people were saying, the text is AI generated, and maybe that's fine. Like, as long as the text does what it intends to do, that's okay. But, again, at this point, it was kind of difficult to say because some people were looking at the original documentation and saying, well, maybe there isn't, it's not super as bad as the accusations were. It's kind of difficult to pin it precisely on Flor in this scenario, but we then get later on another document, right? So Brick comes out with some further comments and Kitty puts this out there as well. This is a follow-up statement that Brick has made to the previous doc, showing a lot more than what was initially stated and more to back up the previous claims. So I think if the first document outlines much more towards the actual specific allegations, this document is much more towards the emotional abuse side of the relationship that seemingly was on the case here, right? And like, I'm not going to read through this entire thing. It's a difficult read to say the least, but as I say, it's in the public domain. So if you guys would like to read it, then feel free to do so. The links will be in the description box below. You guys can find it at your own leisure if you would like to, of course, on the timeline. So yes, it's really difficult to read. Thoughts, of course, with the victim in this case. And I think what kind of differentiates this document is a number of screenshots and images that are posted throughout, even some interesting screenshots which appear to come from, apparently anyway, an old account that Flor used to have, like a burner account on Twitter. But there's a number of screenshots here, including this screenshot actually from Mika, Ava's ex-girlfriend. And I think what many people were looking for is just some evidence to actually tie what they saw and unfortunately read in the first document to Flor. And so there were screenshots such as this, which appear to be from Ava, right, who would be Flor. It's so, and this is November 2023, so it's quite some time ago. But yeah, it's very challenging. But I think that for many who were kind of looking at the original document and saying like, well, it's just going to be X word against Y word, there's more in here, not necessarily to do with the specific allegations that were made and the very, very serious criminal allegations made in the first statement, but more kind of context around like why this seems very plausible from the outside. Now, of course, legal teams, I'm sure, will be getting involved here from either side. The reality of the situation is that, people are going to read these documents, they're going to make their decision, they're going to make up their mind, and whatever Flor says publicly, it may not matter at the end of the day. And we've seen this in the past, that these type of allegations will follow Flor because it's going to be very difficult, I think, for Flor to come out and prove. And obviously on some level from a legal perspective, it's really that, the documents that we've seen, and the reason why we're seeing more evidence is because, that side of the story needs to prove their claims to be true. But from Flor's perspective, it's going to be very, very challenging, even if all of this is false, to kind of counter what we have seen develop over the last 48 hours for the sake of, Flor's career, playing in the future again. Of course, we touched briefly yesterday what it might mean for GC, right, and these type of factors as well. So, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be more coming out on this story, but whatever you guys think about it in the comment section below, the likelihood of Flor ever playing competitive Valorant again is probably slim to none based on what we have seen so far. So, yeah, very difficult one. Intrigued to your thoughts as ever in the comment section below. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.